my own boxing community. And I want to talk about Deontay Wilder, right? Um, I'm not here to bash Wilder. I'm not here to talk about his crazy fans. Um, I'm not here to discuss anything other than Wilder's comeback and what I feel he needs to do in order to become successful um, in his comeback. Um, that's all. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to. This isn't a video where I'm going to bash Wilder. Like there, if you want to hear a video on bashing Wilder and all that, Google, go on other pages. There's tons of videos about that, about his comeback. And this video strictly on the comeback. All right, so let's get to it. What I noticed about Deontay Wilder in this fight, first of all, everyone was talking about how Jose Torres was able to dismantle um, Tyrrell Herndon within 2 rounds. Okay, that's fine. Okay, when you're in a comeback fight, one of the main things you need is rounds. You don't make a comeback and get knockout after knockout after knockout after knockout first 2, 3 rounds. No, you need rounds, right? When Floyd Mayweather cherry picked um, Juan Manuel Marquez, when Floyd Mayweather missed the weight on the scale on purpose, right? The first thing he said was, when they was asking him about the fight, he needs the rounds. Same thing when Roy Jones Jr. made his comeback. I believe it was after his second knockout, after the Glenn Johnson's fight, right? You need the rounds, okay? When you're in a comeback fight, especially at almost 40 years old, when you're making a comeback, you cannot afford to take high risk fights. Okay? You need confidence builder fights. You also need fighters in there who is going to make you work on certain attributes that you may have neglected in the past, or certain attributes that you never were taught, never used, right? That's what a comeback looks like, okay? And watching this fight with Tyrrell Herndon, now, I watched this fight a couple of times before I even wanted to make this video. And what I noticed about this fight is, yes, Herndon wasn't throwing a lot of punches, and he was slipping punches. It almost looked like he was there to work with Wilder and have him work on some things, right? One of the things that I noticed is Wilder used his left hand a lot in this fight, and maybe the new trainer want him to use his left hand, because when you have a powerful right hand, right, and when you were younger, you could get away with kind of pawing the jab, and then the right hand was so fast because Wilder's right hand was really fast in his prime. When you don't have the speed anymore, when you don't have the footwork anymore, when you're older, the age, everything slows down, right? So the new trainer should come in here and work on things to kind of improve what the right hand used to be, what it can be, right? So his right hand may not be fast like it used to be on a pawing jab. However, it can be fast, and it can be a blinding right hand when set up properly, when executed properly, right? Salute, Jedi. Y'all subscribe to my bro, the Jedi. Salute, the Gen X Jedi. Right? So when you're making a comeback, you need these type of rounds. You need these type of fights, right? And like I said, he started in this fight, his new trainer got him working on the right hand more. He was jabbing with the right hand more. He actually dropped Herndon, I believe, in the second round, kind of like a check hook, a left hand check hook, right? Kind of looked like a push, but it was also a punch, so it landed. It's a knockdown. So these are new things that we didn't see in Wilder's previous fights. Again, the previous losses were against better opposition. Okay? So in this fight, maybe he needs to improve certain things, and the things that he didn't do versus Parker was use his jab. He allowed Parker to close the gap on him. Okay? Another thing against Zhang, he only was relying on one punch, right? If you take Zhang to past 5, 6, 7 rounds, he starts to wear down. And he's a 40-year-old fighter. So these are the things that I believe Malik Scott didn't train Wilder on, because you spend so much time your whole life knocking everybody out, relying on the right hand. Everything else gets neglected, right? And sometimes the fighter feels like they're the boss. And listen, I know that you're paying the trainer, but once you step into that gym and the trainer is training you, he is now the boss. You're supposed to listen to your trainer. And like I said, I don't know what Malik Scott was teaching Wilder, right? Because they have more losses together than they do victories. But with this new trainer, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but this new trainer, I could tell, is teaching Wilder to be more aware of his right hand, right? Again, this is the landscape of heavyweights that isn't as stacked as it used to be. Yeah, there's some good fighters there, right? We got some good fighters there. Not saying that there isn't any good fighters. But this is an era, in my opinion, where Wilder can make that type of comeback. Listen, George Foreman made a comeback, right? George Foreman made a comeback, and he fought a string of easy opponents, right? And it took, I believe, I know he lost once or twice before he was able to beat, what you call it? I forgot the guy's name. But anyway, when he regained the title, it was a process into him regaining the title for the second time and being the oldest heavyweight to regain the title. It was a process. It didn't happen overnight. A lot of people don't even realize that George Foreman's comeback started in the later 80s. It didn't start in the 90s. It started in the later 80s. He happened to win his title in the 90s. So people forget that there was a string of fights that George Foreman had prior to becoming the champion again. And maybe this is what Wilder needs to do. Maybe Wilder needs to take easy fights. Stay with BLK Prime. Take these easy fights. And not too easy, but fights that are going to make you work. Fights that are going to keep you noticed. Fights like this. Fights that are going past 5, 6 rounds, getting stoppages, like this. TKO stoppages, referee stoppages, however. Start developing and then go and maybe knockouts here and there. Develop that right hand again so that it could put fear again in the heavyweight division like that right hand used to do. Right? That right hand was a serious right hand. No matter how we critique Wilder's skills, and he does lack certain skills, that right hand, possibly in this era of heavyweights, is the most deadliest right hand of this generation. However, thanks, Jedi, salute. However, um, he doesn't have that in him anymore, right? So it may take to build that up again. You know what I'm saying? It may take to build that up again. And you know what I'm saying? So I feel like with Wilder, um I feel like with Wilder, he just may need to have more tune-ups, and also no long breaks, right? No long breaks, right? No long breaks. We need Wilder to fight every 3 months, 2 months if you can, every 3 months, 3 months. Again, with not with opponents, and each time you fight certain opponents, let each opponent be better than the last one, right? Gradually step up in competition. You know, all right? Do your homework, do the research, see what this fighter brings, see what are the weaknesses and the strength in this fighter. See if this is a fighter that you need to help you improve, right? Right? Because one of the things that Wilder lacked was a real, true heavyweight jab, right? A Lennox Lewis type jab, you know, the Larry Holmes jab, right? He doesn't have even right, like Tyrrell Biggs had a good jab. Um um what's his name? Tim Witherspoon had a good jab, right? Evander Holyfield's jab was pretty good. Like a lot of the great heavyweights had good jabs, right? Plenty of them. I mean, you could date back in you know, in the olden times where like the first punch you learn in the boxing gym is the jab, because the jab sets up everything, right? And with the frame that Wilder has, teach him to make that jab snappy. Teach him to make that jab powerful. Teach him to make that jab be something that's fearful like the right hand. Make that jab blinding, right? So that the right hand could come right after it, right? Before, Wilder was relying on lazy heavyweights, right? Lack of competition, right? You know, fighting guys that you know they're okay, but they weren't world breakers, right? And it was easy for him. I mean, some of these guys that he fought stood square up, waiting for a right hand, right? Until you fought someone that can match your energy, then it's like, well, what can you do when you don't have the right hand anymore, right? We seen heavyweights adapt when they didn't, when their best weapon was taken away from them, right? You take away their best weapon from them, right? A lot of heavyweights learn to adapt, right? So Wilder needs to learn that. He needs to learn to, if I can't land the right hand, well, what can I do, right? Larry Holmes alone won fights off just his jab, right? Right? Muhammad Ali, just off the jab, right? Like the jab is so important, right? Like if you go back and you watch Canelo and Floyd Mayweather, the key punch in that fight was the jab, right? He found his range. He knew he didn't let Canelo close the gap, right? And he used the jab with effectiveness, right? And then everything else after the jab follows. These are the things that I feel that Wilder needs to be taught. And I just think when it comes to this comeback, right? When it comes to this comeback, in order for you to get back on top and fight the you know, top quality opponents, you got to have more than just that right hand. I mean, you know, they say that, you know, a puncher's power, it never leaves him, right? And that may be true, but other attributes leave you, right? Foot speed, punch resistance, stamina, right? Endurance, the will to win, the will to want to train. All these different things, fighters, as you get older, you lose. Now, I do really truly believe that the fights with Fury took a lot out of Wilder, took a lot out of Fury too. Okay, don't get it twisted. Just because Fury won, it was a lot taken out of him in that fight too. Okay, a lot was taken out of Wilder, right? So building the confidence back up is number one, the key, right? Also, stay training. You gotta stay training, right? Gotta stay training. Do your road work. Work on those legs. Work on getting those legs strong. It's not about size. You can have small legs and have strong legs, right? Again, this is a landscape of heavyweights that isn't the best. They're just bigger, right? They're just bigger. I feel that with these heavyweights, Wilder should weigh in a little bit heavier, 230, 235, right? Pack more weight, pack more heavy punches in there. Anybody can get it at any time. What's up, Bradley, man? Salute. The debate king is live. What's up, y'all? Man, salute, salute. So when it comes to Wilder, right, I do believe that he can be dangerous again. I do believe that he can be a threat again, as long as he builds the type of fights necessary to bring him back in a comeback. Listen, there's been plenty of fighters who came back, and try to make a comeback, and they failed. And a lot of the times they fail because they just don't go about it right. Because they use their name and they go into a big fight because they want the big payday. So is it about the payday or is it about the legacy? When George Foreman made his comeback, yeah, sure, he needed the money. He needed the money. But you could tell when he regained his title, you could tell that it was about the legacy, right? It was about making that comeback. You could tell that it wasn't just money, right? And a lot of the times these fighters come back just for money. I hope that that's not the case with Manny Pacquiao. It was obvious that Adrian Broner was on a path of, I'm just here because I need the money. It's like, no, make your comeback and do it properly. Do it properly so that it doesn't tarnish your legacy, right? So the legacy, a lot of people say, oh, the legacy doesn't matter, things like that. Belts doesn't matter. These guys are getting paid. Listen, legacy matters because in the history books, they're not going to talk about you if you didn't make an impact in the sport. They're not going to care about how much money you made. They want to know about your accomplishments, your accolades, who you beat, who you fought, who you lost to, who you had the wars with. That's what gonna build your legacy. And I think when it comes to Wilder, is it too late to teach an old dog new tricks, right? That's the saying. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And there is some truth to that. But when George Foreman made his comeback, he wasn't fighting the same. His defense was better, right? He was using his jab better. He was more focused. His punches were straighter at times, right? His punches, they weren't all looping and telegraph punches. It took as him an older age to learn these new things. And I think when it comes to Wilder, I don't think it's too late. I think you can teach him new things. It's just up to him to want to implement that in his game in order to become successful. And I think if he does these things, he can be a threat again. I don't know if he could become a world champion again. And that's possible too because there's so many belts. But I think if he makes the proper changes, the proper training, listen to his coach. I do believe that he once again could be, you know, a contender threat in the heavyweight division. I do think that he can if he makes this comeback properly, right? You can't have one or two tune-ups. Wilder might be the guy that might need 5 tune-ups, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tune-ups. Whatever it takes to make you successful as a heavyweight. I hope that Deontay Wilder can do the things, and not just Wilder, Anthony Joshua, even Tyson Fury. All these older guys may have to go back to the drawing board. Watch their old film, look at the things that they weren't doing, right? We know that Wilder wasn't using the jab properly. We know that he was pawing it. We know that, he squared up. We know that his defense wasn't that good. We know that he doesn't have a good inside fighting game, right? So many weaknesses in Wilder's game, but it took a long time to get exploited because the right hand was dangerous. Is that right hand dangerous still? Even with this Herndon fight, that remains to be seen, right? The more we see Wilder, the more we can make an assessment on whether Wilder is still the Wilder that we knew that was knocking people out cold with that right hand. This is the MOBC, my own boxing community.